arrived in Austin on December 5th at about 11:30 p.m. And he went to Tim Parlin's, and then Tim Parlin told them, "Oh, my wife is asleep right now, so just drive around and keep yourself occupied for a few hours."
It just doesn't make sense. I mean, who drives 4+ hours from Galveston to be told go get lost for another 4 hours and is okay with it? Sean knows more than what he's willing to tell us.
I tell Sean, when we do this type of investigation, we get everyone's cell phone records, and it tells us where a person was at any given time. He said, "Oh, I just remembered something. Maybe I did go riding with him." So that means that he's constantly having to change his story to fit what he thinks I know. Now Sean says, we just drove around. And finally he's like, "Well, we did stop in a neighborhood." So I gave him his paper pen. He drew the streets. He drew the car. He drew little stickman Tim Parlin walking down the sidewalk.
Sean's describing Kathy Blair's neighborhood, and that diagram was identical to the video Rob Lee recorded.
He was there the night of that murder.
New study has revealed the depth of the mental health crisis affecting Australian farmers.
Britain is going to try to speak the English Channel.
It's taken 4 years of training and over 17 hours of swimming to reach the shores of France.
Nissan Patrol, with a 3.9% finance rate across the range. Search Nissan offers or contact your local Nissan dealer today.
In the vicious homicide of Kathy Blair, detectives are trying to pin down who actually killed her. Was it the bitter ex-handyman and burglar, Tim Parlin? Or the microbiology graduate who hung out with him, Sean Gant Benalcazar?
I thought, I bet you this is what happened. Tim Parlin recruited Sean to go do a burglary with him. And Sean probably drove the car while Tim went inside the house, committed the murder, and came back out. I confronted Sean and said, "Listen, we found blood in the car." And I got Sean to acknowledge that when Tim came back, he brought a bag with him, and that the bag was bloody. They're both contradictory in that one detail of who actually went inside Kathy Blair's house. And I'm getting frustrated because we're just kind of going in circles.
And then Sean says he needs to go to the bathroom. Sean's walking in front of me, and I saw the way his strides, his gait, his build, his shoulders, the hair just rose up on the back of my neck. I think that's the guy that's in the video that walks away from the car to Kathy Blair's house and goes in and murders her.
Sean Gant Benalcazar, you're lying. You are a liar. So, who went into that house and who actually killed Kathy Blair?
We asked him, did Tim Parlin tell you, Sean, that there's a video surveillance camera on the house right across the street from Kathy Blair's? So there is video of who went to Kathy Blair's house. And Sean appears surprised.
That's finally when Sean said, "Yes, I did go inside the house." And not only did he admit to going inside the house, but that he was the only one inside the house.
And we know that because of that, what we need to do is understand why. What was the reason that Tim told you that he wanted you to go?
He just said that was it. What he wanted.
Did he order you to kill her? Or did he just tell you to take the sword?
No, he ordered me to kill her.
We asked him, "Did you have to do this?" We know that Tim is a controlling person.
Yeah, he was threatening my family, okay? I told you I was afraid of the guy. I didn't want my little sister dead.
But he told us all the details we need to corroborate his confession that he killed Kathy Blair.
With Sean's confession, investigators are able to piece together Kathy Blair's final 24 hours.
Kathy Blair returned home around 4:30 p.m. and got ready for the Christmas concert that night. She performed in the show from 5:30 p.m. till 10 p.m.
Kathy Blair returns to her house around 11:30 p.m.
Sean arrived in Austin around 11:30 p.m. and met up with Tim Parlin.
Kathy Blair sent an email to her son around 12:46 a.m. Tim and Sean arrived in Kathy Blair's neighborhood around 1:16 a.m. And by that time, it appears Kathy Blair is either asleep or she's in her bed.
Sean attacks her by stabbing her in the neck on the bed. Kathy Blair fights back, and the fight goes onto the floor next to her bed. Kathy Blair fights for her life and is stabbed in the legs and in the arms, and ultimately has her throat cut and is strangled by Sean.
After the assault, Sean Gant Benalcazar removed a pillowcase from one of the pillows. He then empties the drawers of jewelry into the pillowcase.
He then exits out the back door and gets into the car with Tim Parlin, and they depart the scene.
He was just a wild animal that Tim Parlin set loose on the streets of Austin.
Investigators are still left wondering what drew Tim Parlin and Sean Gant Benalcazar together, and why did they kill Kathy Blair?
Tim said that Sean's sister had become hooked on methamphetamines, and that it was an ex-boyfriend of hers that got her hooked. And Sean decided he wanted to get revenge on this ex-boyfriend. Wanted to kill him, wanted to kill his ex-wife and child, and his mother. The problem is, if he went and killed all those people, suspicion would fall on Sean pretty quickly. But if it appeared to be the act of a random serial killer, then Sean wouldn't be suspected. So they set about becoming serial killers in order to cover up the actual murders that they wanted to perform.
As crazy as this manufactured serial killer story sounds, this is remarkably similar to another case of male-dominated teen killers, and that's the DC Sniper. John Allen Muhammad, the leader of the pair, wanted to actually murder his ex-wife, but he had to make it look like she was just a random victim of the sniper. So he killed all these innocent people beforehand, with the lead-up being that it would end with his wife. Had Tim Parlin and Sean not been caught, one has to wonder if they would have become sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. They would have gone on to become that manufactured serial killer that they were creating.
Sean Gant Benalcazar and Tim Parlin are convicted of capital murder for killing Kathy Blair. They are both sentenced to life in prison without parole.
This case was definitely one of the most complex, dark cases I've ever worked. To solve a crime like this, you have to understand the crime. And to understand the mind of these people affects your own mind. It does take a toll. I mean, it's a dark place to be at.
To remember Kathy and her love of music and teaching, friends and family set up a scholarship in her name.
The number of people who have been hurt by her loss is incalculable. Her students, certainly her family. She was a positive influence on so many people in Austin.
You know, I just hope that the people that knew her and loved her focus on the fact that they got to have the time that they did with her and how lucky they were. I mean, she sounds like she's the best friend they ever had.
At NIB, you can make a claim, do a free health check and more, all on our app. We invited one of our members to pop in and chat about it. They must be stuck in traffic. NIB, as exciting as health insurance gets.
It was clear that whoever committed the crime was known to her and was allowed in by her.
Her career was blossoming.
This is my cubicle. My computer
She loved life, loved her family. She really was effervescent. She was quite special.
Out of all the hallmarks, her frenzy, assault, multiple strikes, and a lot of bloodshed. It seemed to me like it was a rage killing.
The letter that he read at the memorial service stated, "If I killed Lisa." It was very, very strange. The perpetrator stayed in the house for over 30 hours, and approximately 2 feet of hair was cut and taken.
Removing her hair would have just intensified the killer's obsessive tendencies, the need to own her, even in death.
It was 13 years since the homicide, and then they said, "We have a perfect match." We finally got the guy.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. San Francisco, California, sparkles with color and diversity. And in the late 1990s, the upscale neighborhood of Diamond Heights is one of the city's crown jewels.
San Francisco was bustling in '98, and one of the reasons people moved to Diamond Heights is to see the expansive view of the city from above. There's a panoramic view of the bay. It was considered a very safe neighborhood, no major crimes like you might find in the Tenderloin or downtown San Francisco.
On a late spring morning, with the city enveloped in a layer of fog, an alarming call comes into 911 from an upscale condominium complex.
The manager of one of the buildings in Diamond Heights Village noticed a foul odor coming from condominium 307. The manager found the door unlocked, opened the door, and saw what appeared to be a deceased individual.
It would be a fair assumption to say that he realized something was terribly wrong. He immediately called the police. Police and paramedics arrived at the scene at 12:20 p.m. and upon entering, they found a female on the floor. It was immediately obvious to the first responders that this was a homicide.
The victim is the owner of the condo, 36-year-old computer programmer Lisa Valdez.
Lisa worked in the IT profession and her career was blossoming.
And this is my cubicle. My computer, my computer.
Lisa Valdez was born and raised in San Francisco. She loved life, loved her family. She really was effervescent. She was quite special.
Inspectors Pam Hofsis and Ronan Scholdice from the San Francisco Police Department's homicide detail are called in to investigate.
When you're in such close proximity, knowing that this person has been violently murdered, you can really not stop that video reel in your mind, imagining the sequence of events. Crime scenes, they will reveal some of the story themselves. Lisa's body was left in a position that you could only describe as being extremely undignified. Her shirt was pulled up around her neck. Her underwear appeared to have been torn off and were on the floor beside her. She had a number of stab wounds. It was really difficult to discern any wounds or pattern of wounds given that there was a degree of decomposition already underway. It appeared that she had been deceased for a period of a few days.
If you look at the crime scene, it seems that there was a very angry outburst. The way the mattress is located is very odd. It appears that the victim was stabbed on the bed and then pulled off the mattress onto the floor.
In this case, the blood at the scene tells us a lot. When you see a lot of high velocity spatter, this suggests that someone is being struck or stabbed with tremendous speed and force. It's casting blood a great distance to suggest that this is very much a frenzied attack, some kind of crime of passion.
To solve Lisa Valdez's murder, detectives will need to reconstruct the final 24 hours of her life.
There was was a bed which was in disarray with a large quantity of blood.
Blood all over, basically the mattress is soaked, the bedding is soaked. So maybe it was a sexual encounter gone bad.
The injuries were clearly the result of stabbing using some kind of weapon, given the degree of bloodshed. The working assumption was that it was an edged weapon, a knife of some sort.
Detectives collect all the bedding for testing, hoping some of the blood belongs to Lisa's killer.
Particularly in an edged weapon attack, where there is often a high likelihood that the assailant will likewise injure himself or herself.
If you stab someone repeatedly, your fatty palm of your hand is going to get wet with the blood of that victim, and then you'll start hitting the hilt and the blade with your palm as you're stabbing someone.
Inspectors continue processing the crime scene, looking for answers.
Beside Lisa's body on the carpet, there was also a broken glass. This broken glass, perhaps it may have been held by her assailant. There was a phone beside the bed with the receiver knocked off the base. There was blood on it. Everything was collected for both DNA and for latent fingerprints.
Investigators collect Lisa's computer, agenda, and answering machine, hoping they'll offer up clues on who might have wanted to kill her.
We collect these items, attempting to establish recent contacts and activity.
If you looked at her calendar, almost every hour of every single day was filled with some event or celebration, either a date or a gym workout, Hawaiian dance class. I mean, she did it all. So she was very, very active.
And the search continued throughout the rest of the condominium. The bathroom became an area of focus because it seemed clear to me that the assailant had spent some time in there. Most significantly to me, the toilet seat was in the raised position.
Lisa lives alone. Most women don't leave the toilet seat up. We don't go to the bathroom that way.
We recovered partial latent fingerprint consistent with where an individual's fingers may go underneath to raise it into the up position. Other surfaces also yielded prints or partial prints, all of which were collected.
New questions emerge as investigators work their way through Lisa's condo.
At the scene, you have to look at everything. Was this a burglary gone wrong? There was nothing to indicate that somebody had, either before or after the homicide, searched through Lisa's unit looking for valuables. It was a very secure building. You had to be admitted or to have codes to access the building. There was a door viewer in the door which would allow her to see who was outside.
There's no sign of forced entry. It was clear that whoever committed the crime was known to her and was allowed in by Lisa Valdez.
Having determined that Lisa has likely been deceased for several days, inspectors turn to her neighbors, hoping to narrow down her window of death.
Downstairs neighbors report that they heard a commotion at around 1:26 in the morning of Sunday, May 17th. It could be as she's being pulled off the mattress and, lands on the floor. It could be when she's being stabbed to death.
Based on this new information, inspectors believe that Lisa was likely murdered around 1:26 a.m. Investigators turn to the medical examiner, hoping their findings will help them build a profile of the killer.
The medical examiner noted a total of 21 stab wounds to the face, the neck, and the chest. They also noted that the aorta was severed, which explains the amount of blood on the mattress and the bedding. And they also noted defensive wounds on her hands, so she probably put her hands up for self-defense.
With all the hallmarks of a frenzied assault, multiple strikes, and a lot of bloodshed.
21 separate stab wounds is overkill. The fact that most of these horrific stab wounds are concentrated around Lisa's face and chest tells me that this was not only intensely personal, but that this was someone who wanted to absolutely erase her, not only kill her. And there is some type of possessive, obsessive, and often sexual underlying motive.
Because of the degradation of DNA, the medical examiner couldn't prove that there was also a rape involved. But again, she was left in a position that would be consistent with some kind of a sexual assault, most likely post-mortem.
The medical examiner makes another important discovery. Lisa's hair appears to have been crudely cut, most likely post-mortem, as there are no lacerations to her scalp.
The fact that Lisa is found with her hair cut off, this is something that's fantasy or ritualistic driven, because cutting someone's hair is not required for commission of this crime. Could very well be that the killer is motivated to have a piece of her always with him.
Inspectors receive the crime lab reports, and the initial findings don't yield any DNA results. Fingerprint analysis also comes up empty. But then, they receive a potential new lead.
In one particular area, on one of the pillowcases, there were a couple of drops that caught the attention of the crime lab. They felt very optimistic that it could be the assailant's blood. And it was.
We found a mixture of two different DNAs on the pillow. One was Lisa Valdez and one was an unknown male profile. This blood droplet was a major breakthrough for the case. That DNA profile needs to be matched to somebody because he must be the killer. I personally hand-delivered a small little tube of DNA extract from this droplet on Lisa's pillow that revealed a known male profile to the state DNA crime lab. Now, 1998, early DNA methods took a lot of time, but they uploaded it to the database, which was very small and limited at the time, and found no match.
With no concrete leads or potential suspects, inspectors turn to Lisa's mother, Helen Valdez, hoping she can fill out her daughter's timeline.
Helen and Lisa were very, very close. They spent a lot of time together. They would talk almost every day. It was very, very painful for Helen to lose her daughter and not know why someone would do that. It was just a real heartbreak for her, as for any parent.
Investigators ask Helen Valdez about her last contact with Lisa and learn they saw each other just a few hours before Lisa was likely killed.
Lisa's mother said that on Saturday, May 16th, Lisa entertained her mother and some friends at a dinner party. Most of the other guests were leaving at about 11 p.m. Helen stays on with Lisa for another little while and left around midnight or 12 a.m. on Sunday, May 17th.
Helen Valdez also reveals a crucial detail about her daughter's appearance.
As part of the autopsy, the medical examiner noted that her hair was shoulder-length, and when that information was shared with the family, the response was Lisa's pride and joy was her hair.
They called it, I believe, her crowning glory. It's her signature. Helen said that she would never have cut her hair.
2 feet of her hair, her prized possession, is taken. That is what's known as a token. This adds to the fact that the person who committed the crime knew Lisa because they would have known that her hair was really a big part of her life.
It would imply that there is a fixation or there is something beyond just the violence involved.
The killer cutting her hair could be a way of humiliating her. It could be a way of sending a message that I'm attacking you and I'm attacking your sexuality and your femininity. Maybe I want to take this to also possess you. Maybe he wants a memento or a trophy that he can use for his own purposes.
By removing her hair, it would have just intensified the killer's obsessive tendencies, the need to own her, even in death.
Inspectors ask Helen Valdez if there are any men in Lisa's life who might match the profile of a man who was obsessed with her.
Helen said that Lisa had told her during the dinner party that she had a date with somebody new the following day on Sunday, May 17th. Helen did not know who this individual was. That became a potentially interesting lead because she perhaps had received a visit from him prematurely and let him into her apartment. Trying to find this individual rapidly became a focus of the investigation.
Then results come in from the analysis of Lisa's computer and her telephone, with fresh leads for inspectors to dig into.
Computer Computer forensics investigators determined that at approximately 12:10 a.m. on Sunday, May 17th, Lisa was updating her own website, which would have been shortly after her mother, Helen, had left around midnight.
Her computer was then abruptly shut down without logging off or anything like that at 1:30 in the morning.
So as we examine the timeline, given the loud noise at about 1:26 a.m., and then you look at the improper shutdown of Lisa's computer at 1:30 a.m., it would suggest that the dynamics had shifted within her apartment at that time.
The theory is that it could have been the perpetrator that either just shut it down or unplugged it.
The investigation also reveals that at 2:50 a.m., the call comes in to Lisa's landline, which is unanswered. This call is received by the answering machine.
The caller identifies himself as Kevin Duvall.
Kevin states, "Hi Lisa, hi sweetie, I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to make the date today. Talk to you soon. Thanks, bye." We needed to find Kevin